Level 1, the mission-ready wingman. You have finished the basic pipeline. You have your wings, you have your aircraft assignment, you have survived the B course and learned enough systems, emergency procedures, and tactical basics for the squadron to trust you with a combat-coded jet. You are qualified. You are not yet experienced. The distance between those two things is measured in sorties, mistakes, and the number of times the debrief reminds you that your opinion matters less than your formation position. You arrive at your operational squadron and discover that graduation was not arrival, it was admission. You learn local tactics, local procedures, local standards, and the names of the people who keep your aircraft flying. You step to the jet with maintainers who know the machine better than you do. You brief, you taxi, you take off. You spend most of the sortie trying not to be behind the airplane, behind the radios, or behind the formation. Your job is simple and therefore unforgiving. Hold your position. Execute the contract. Keep your eyes outside. Do not lose sight. Do not miss the radio call. Do not become the problem the mission has to solve. The wingman does not lead the fight. He enables it. He is the newest tactical asset in the squadron and the least trusted with improvisation. The squadron makes that clear. You are corrected constantly because advanced fighter aviation has no use for fragile ego. You are assigned a call sign, usually for a reason you did not choose and cannot escape. Your first name disappears. In every professional setting, you become the call sign. It will outlive your rank. Level 2. The advanced wingman. You have flown enough sorties to stop sounding new on the radio. You can rejoin without making the formation ugly. You can hold your timeline, employ your weapons within the briefed parameters, and process the flow of a complex mission without freezing when the picture changes. You are still number 2, but now you are useful instead of merely present. This is the stage where advanced fighter pilots begin to understand that tactical competence is not one skill. It is a stack. Formation discipline, fuel management, threat reactions, sensor management, weapons timelines, communications discipline, mutual support. The public imagines fighter aviation as a single moment at the merge. The squadron knows better. Most success is built before the first shot is available, and most failure begins with a small error made 10 minutes earlier and ignored because no one wanted to admit it. You deploy now. You sit alert. You fly night sorties over water, mountains, desert, or cities lit by people who have no idea you are above them. Sometimes the mission is routine. Sometimes the mission is one bad call from becoming very permanent. You begin to understand why experienced flight leads sound calm. They are not less aware of the danger than you are. They are simply less surprised by it. Level 3. The two-ship flight lead. You have proven that you can be trusted with another aircraft attached to your decisions. That is the first real threshold of advanced fighter status. You are upgraded to lead an element, the basic tactical building block of fighter employment. 2 aircraft, one supporting the other. One set of decisions that now affects more than your own sortie grade. You plan the mission, you brief the contracts, you assign responsibilities. In the air, you make timeline calls, formation calls, contracts for radar sort, contracts for visual lookout, contracts for fuel, contracts for weapons. You are no longer graded only on your own aircraft. You are graded on whether the element remains mutually supporting, tactically coherent, and survivable. The burden changes the way you think. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and start asking, "Can both of us do this and still get home?" The advanced fighter pilot never fights alone, even when the geometry looks individual. That lesson becomes more important as the missions become more complex. A solo tactical win that breaks the larger game plan is not a win. A perfect missile shot that leaves your wingman vulnerable is not good tactics. At this level, discipline becomes a higher form of aggression. Level 4. The 4-ship flight lead. You have flown enough, deployed enough, and debriefed enough to earn the most important tactical certification in the squadron. 4 aircraft is where fighter tactics become operational instead of personal. 2 elements: multiple timelines, multiple radios, more contracts to manage than one person can comfortably hold without preparation. This is why the brief matters. This is why the debrief matters more. The foreship is how advanced fighter units project combat power with flexibility. One element can support while the other commits. One can defend while the other prosecutes. One can hold high cover while the other descends for the assignment. You plan routing, fuel, roles, contingencies, reactions to threats, lost comm procedures, visual contracts, and game plans for the things most likely to go wrong. Then you launch into a world that does not care about your plan and begin adapting in real time. The debrief becomes brutal in proportion to the complexity. Every timeline is rebuilt. Every radio call is examined. Every wrong assumption is identified. Rank is still irrelevant here. If a younger captain can prove that your tactical decision was flawed, then it was flawed. Advanced fighter aviation remains lethal only because the debrief remains honest. A squadron that protects feelings in the debrief will eventually pay for it in aluminum and blood. Level 5. The instructor pilot. You are no longer merely executing the standard. You are now expected to explain it, enforce it, and transfer it to someone else in the aircraft. That is a different kind of pressure. Flying your own sortie well is one skill. Teaching someone else to survive theirs while they are still behind the jet is another. The instructor pilot sits in the cockpit with pilots who are not yet ready to be alone in it. You demonstrate, you monitor, you intervene before a bad trend becomes a safety report. You correct errors in real time and then explain them in detail afterward. You are now one of the squadron's instruments for reproducing itself. The unit is no longer trusting you, only with a fighter. It is trusting you with continuity. By this point, you are usually a senior captain or a new major, and the career begins to separate into 2 competing truths. The pilots who remain closest to the airplane remain the sharpest in the airplane. The officers who leave for staffs, schools, and broadening assignments become more competitive for the promotions that decide who will command later. The institution says it values tactical excellence. The promotion system values tactical excellence plus institutional breadth. Those are not the same thing. Every advanced fighter pilot learns this. None of them can ignore it. Some stay close to the jet as long as they can. They become the pilots everyone wants on their wing and the officers least optimized for the board. Others leave for the assignments that make the next rank more likely. They become more promotable and less current in the thing that made them valuable in the first place. You choose, and the choice follows you for the rest of your career. Level 6. The mission commander. This is where advanced fighter competence becomes orchestration. You are no longer leading only your formation. You are integrating multiple formations, support assets, timing windows, and mission effects into one coherent package. Fighters, tankers, airborne warning, suppression assets, escort, strike, rescue, maybe coalition aircraft with different procedures and different assumptions. The radio stack gets crowded. The timeline gets fragile. The mission commander keeps all of it moving. The mission commander is not just a better pilot. He is a manager of chaos under speed. He understands who must be on time, who can flex, what must be protected, what can be traded, and when a plan that is technically intact is already tactically dead. He absorbs incomplete information, conflicting reports, degraded sensors, fuel pressure, weather, threats, and human error, then turns them into decisions that other aircraft can execute without hesitation. At this level, advanced fighter aviation looks less like a duel and more like systems engineering conducted at hundreds of knots. The best mission commanders are calm because they have learned that panic is contagious and clarity is a combat multiplier. When the package lands, The mission commander does not remember the easiest part of the sortie. He remembers the moment the timeline began to bend, and whether he bent it back before the rest of the formation felt it snap. Level 7. The Weapons Officer. This is the apex of tactical authority in the squadron. You are selected for advanced tactical study at a level that turns good pilots into doctrine-shaping pilots. You study threats in depth, not as silhouettes in a slide deck, but as integrated systems with ranges, modes, limitations, and human operators behind them. You study weapons envelopes, electronic warfare, data link architecture, integration with joint assets, and the difference between a tactic that works in a clean training setup and one that survives contact with a modern enemy. The training is compressed, relentless, and intentionally exhausting. You fly, you brief, you debrief, you rewrite, you study. Then you do it again with less sleep than good judgment would recommend. The point is not simply to produce a pilot who can perform advanced tactics. The point is to produce the squadron's reference point for why those tactics work, where they fail, and how they should evolve. When you return, your authority comes less from rank than from validated expertise. Senior officers may outrank you administratively and still defer to you tactically. That is because advanced fighter units do not stay lethal by pretending all experience is equal. They stay lethal by allowing proven competence to speak with disproportionate weight. The weapons officer writes tactical guidance, shapes training priorities, and decides what the squadron must fix before the next deployment exposes the weakness for real. Level 8. The Operations Officer. You are still a fighter pilot, but now you are also responsible for the daily machinery that turns a squadron from a collection of talented individuals into a functioning combat unit. Scheduling, training progression, readiness, aircraft availability, instructor distribution, upgrade priorities, deployment preparation, standardization, evaluation. The operations officer lives where tactics, manpower, and time collide. You still fly, but not with the same freedom as before. The ratio has changed. Each sortie now competes with meetings, reports, manning shortfalls, emergency leave requests, broken jets, delayed parts, and the bureaucratic metabolism of a military organization. You begin to understand that units do not fail only because pilots make bad tactical decisions. They fail because systems drift, standards soften, admin burdens accumulate, and no one notices the erosion until the mission exposes it. This stage teaches an advanced fighter pilot a painful truth. Excellence in the air is visible. Excellence in managing the structure that makes the air mission possible is mostly invisible until it is absent. The operations officer spends large parts of his day preventing failures that no one will ever celebrate because the better he does his job, the less dramatic the result appears. Level 9. The Squadron Commander. You command the unit now, not just its aircraft, not just its tactics, the unit. Pilots, maintainers, intelligence, life support, weapons, admin, families, funerals, discipline, readiness, morale, and the long chain of consequences that begins when a young pilot straps into a jet and ends wherever the mission carries him. For many advanced fighter pilots, this is the highest meaningful peak. It is the last level at which the cockpit is still close enough to touch, while command remains real enough to consume you. You lead deployments. You absorb inspections. You answer for mishaps. You make calls that affect careers, marriages, training timelines, and the probability that your people are ready when the nation asks them to do something irreversible. When a sortie goes well, the squadron gets the credit. When a sortie goes badly, the commander owns the outcome. That is the bargain. And when a pilot is injured, or killed, or makes a mistake serious enough to change several lives at once, the commander carries the part of the burden that cannot be delegated. The advanced fighter pilot has spent years learning to dominate chaos in the air. Command teaches him that some forms of chaos do not care how good he was in the cockpit. Level 10, the Colonel and beyond. You command larger formations now, or you move to positions where decisions are measured in programs, budgets, force structure, and basing, rather than in turns, timelines, and weapons employment zones. You still wear the wings, you still remember the jet, but memory and currency are no longer the same thing. You fly less, then less again. Eventually, your calendar is built around policy reviews, readiness meetings, congressional interests, procurement arguments, infrastructure problems, and the institutional negotiations that determine which units survive, which aircraft remain relevant, and which communities get asked to do more with fewer people. From the outside, this looks like power. From the inside, it often feels like distance. You are now a senior leader who used to be an advanced fighter pilot every day. That is not the same as still being one. The transition happens gradually and then all at once. 1 year you are evaluating tactical contracts in the debrief. A few years later you are evaluating budget lines, pilot retention numbers, and whether the force can sustain the training hours required to remain credible. You are still serving the mission. You are just serving it farther away from the sound that made you love it. Level 11, the cycle. You retire. 20 years, maybe more. You leave with command wings, a body that has kept score, a stack of evaluations, old call signs, old patches, old deployment photos, and thousands of hours of experience that the civilian world will value in ways that are useful but emotionally incomplete. The transition is practical. The check still matters. The family still matters. Stability becomes more attractive than adrenaline once you have already consumed enough of the latter for one lifetime. You adapt. Most do. The skill transfers, the discipline transfers, the professionalism transfers, but the feeling does not. The feeling of stepping to a jet at dawn with live weapons and a plan precise enough to survive contact with reality. The feeling of hearing your formation check in one by one and knowing you are responsible for what happens next. The feeling of executing a mission so cleanly that the debrief is almost quiet, because everyone in the room knows that for a few minutes in contested airspace, the plan, the training, and the people aligned exactly as they were supposed to. That feeling does not transfer to anything else. Somewhere tonight, a young wingman in an operational fighter squadron is studying tactics for a check ride he is not sure he is ready for. He is tired. He has been working all day and studying all night. He is beginning to understand how high the standard actually is. He wants to be taken seriously. He wants to stop feeling new. He will fly the sortie, absorb the criticism, fix the errors, earn the trust, lead the element, command the package, teach the replacements, shape the tactics, run the squadron, and eventually leave the cockpit farther behind than he ever intended. The cycle continues.